curious.
Those who can imagine anything can create the impossible.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session today, MWC25. What's the role of OSS BSS in the big themes from the show? My name is Peter Jarich. I'm the head of GSMA Intelligence. And first of all, thank you very much. I know for many people, Thursday, it's been a long show. I was going to say you made it. You're still standing, but maybe you're not. We're all sitting. So maybe you're all just looking for a place to sit because it was a long night. That's fine. That's fine. We're happy to have you here. But I'd say congratulations all, because I think this is going to be one of the better sessions. Save the best for last, as they say. And I say that because when we thought about putting this session together, looked at the agenda across the week, and a lot of great opportunities. I mean, who here went to a session that had AI as a topic? Some of you are lying. Some of you, I mean, I know a lot of us, lots of great sessions on AI, right? No shortage, right? Network APIs, anyone? Network APIs? I mean, Roy made you go to a network API. I'm sure he did, I'm sure. So yes, lots of that. But what there wasn't a lot of sessions, and what I didn't see when I looked at the agenda, is anything really specifically looking at OSS BSS. And I get that, right? That tends to be the focus maybe of things like DTW or other events. But it's also so critical to so much of what goes on. And so I thought nothing better than at the end to look back and say, what do we think were the big themes? How do they fit into OSS and BSS? So I'm glad to have a set of the best in the industry.
Thank you.
And wow, clearly I wasn't going to skip you, but yes, thank you. So what we'll do is go and we're gonna do quick introductions so you know who's all here. You can see them on the screen, but better to hear it from themselves, and then we'll have mostly a discussion. We weren't sure if we want to take questions from the audience, but these look like maybe a safe crowd, so we can see how we go. But Haifa, why don't you begin and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Haifa Alashka. I look after the telecom strategy for CSG. And for those of you who don't know who CSG is, we provide modern, open platforms that go across sell, fulfill, and bill. But while that might sound very generic and broad, I just call out three specific things. I think that one of the key things is that our industry is very challenged, and it's important to consider that in any OSS BSS conversation, but equally that the technology that's been on display here, which is fairly mind-blowing, is also part of the problem and the challenge that needs to be dealt with. So for us, we anchor around experience and value, and I think they're the key things we need to always keep in mind is how do we make customers happy, but how do we make money and stay profitable? I think that's it.
Mohan, how do you help us make money?
Yeah, that's everyone's focus. That's been the topic for the past few years, actually, if you look at it. No, thank you for having us here. It's been a great week, I would say. As you said, fourth day, usually, everyone is looking forward to go and leave after a tiring day, but we've been having great conversations around 5G monetization and, the AI frameworks. We're having great conversation with our peers. It's a special year for me, actually, I have to say. This is the 10th time attending MWC, and InfoVista is turning 30, so it's our 30th anniversary as a company. I'm turning 40 myself this month, so it's a great year for me.
You joined when it was 10.
Exactly.
Ari, how about you and Netcracker?
So first of all, good morning, and thank you guys for joining us here. Ari Banerjee, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Netcracker Technology. And for people not familiar with Netcracker, we are the leading digital transformation vendors with over 300 plus customers across the globe.
Great. Very short and sweet. Anshul.
Hi, Anshul this side. Thanks for having us here, Peter. I am I work at Rakuten Symphony based out of US. I look after sales and business development for the region. And if for those who don't know Rakuten Symphony, we build and certify Open RAN cloud OSS solutions in Japan and make it available for the world.
Dave, last but not least.
Sure, and thank you everybody for taking time to join us. Dave Labuda, founder and chief scientist at Matrixx Software. I've been in the telecom charging, rating, billing space for 32 years, hard to admit. Started as a founder of Portal Software, which eventually became the Oracle BRM system, and then we started Matrixx in 2009 to build a next generation BSS for the smartphone era.
So I guess we can think about what the big topics were, and there was, I mean, depending upon your angle, there's always big themes, but I think we kind of hit it early on. I mean, making money. Right? It doesn't seem like a theme, right? I mean, we put a fancy name on it, 5G monetization, and to some extent, we're not really using the term 5G monetization. But do we think we're any closer, or has anyone seen anything, conversations this week that someone seems to have cracked the code? Because I think we know the problem, right? The industry. I mean, we've all seen those slides, right? I mean, if you were at the keynote, right, it's the revenues and traffic going in different directions and all these things. We know the issue. Any conversations you've had this week of anyone who's cracked the code and how you guys are helping them? And I mean, you started us off with the industry is in trouble and whatever. I mean, any progress?
Can I flip that?
Please.
I apologize. I know it's the first question
wonderful.
right off the thing. The thing is, we keep talking about 5G monetization, but if you guys go back like to 2008, 2009, we were going from switched networks to packet networks, and all the talk was about LTE, and everyone was excited about how do we unlock revenue and make money, and we were all focused on use cases, and did anyone discover the use case that's going to make money? But the key thing that we learned when we look back there is that while everyone had their head deep in the trenches thinking about the use cases and the killer app that was going to make money, there was a whole business movement that happened on top with over-the-top players. And I feel that we're at risk of continually asking the same questions without stopping to recognize you need to step back and look at business reshaping. The industry is reshaping, and we need to take stock of that. And so when we talk about making money, for me, it's about looking at it from a business lens and not just necessarily from a technology lens.
Fair enough. I mean,
I think, yeah, as you mentioned, the business aspect of it is really important. But the problem is we've been talking 5G monetization for the 5 years, and what's hindering that actually from becoming a reality is the legacy complex ecosystem that we have as well. We've been dealing with complex data coming from all parts of the networks. And we at InfoVista, actually, we've been dealing with these data in silos. For those who don't know InfoVista, I didn't get the chance to introduce InfoVista as well, right? So we have solutions that spans across the network lifecycle. We help mobile operators build networks that deliver, the quality of experience, optimal quality of experience for the subscribers. And we've been dealing with these data in silos. I think we've been always saying that if you try to break these silos, understand how to deal with it, maybe you can start moving up the pyramid to start talking about 5G monetization. At the end of the day, it's all about data. So data is the heart of it.
I mean, that's a really good point. Anshul and I were having that conversation beforehand, not skipping you, Ari, I swear. It was a conversation that we just had. How do we think operators feel about their data? Or, I mean, we're having a great conversation. I was probably a year or so ago, was talking with some operators as part of an AI task force that we have at the GSMA. And the concept of you need good data to support AI, right? Hey,
Absolutely.
Data is the fuel for AI, right? Sounds trite.
Yeah.
And one of the operators said, well, no, AI is going to help me find my data. No, I mean, you don't have to have clean data. AI takes that for you. And there was sort of like half of the group was like, yeah. And the other half of the group was like, oh, those guys are in trouble, right? And we kind of got this idea that maybe some operators have this figured out and some don't, and some are merging their big data and AI. How do we feel? I mean, do we think operators come back to this? And maybe, Ari, before, it was a conversation we had, Anshul, but I mean, Ari, how are you seeing that sort of data side of things?
So before I get to the data, I think the fundamental problem that our industry has is looking at network first and monetization second. That's the bigger problem, right? We look at generations of technology and think, okay, and it comes from the network vendors, let's put it very clearly. You have them, and they're going to say, 5G is going to solve every problem, including world hunger, for example, and COVID, and God knows what. And then, it's the hype curve is up here. And then you come into it and say, oh, what's happening? Nothing. I don't have anything. The promise was there will be on-demand network slicing, 50, 60, 100 of them. How many do we have? 3. Barely. So typically this is what happens. Now you're saying 5G, I think we are slowly moving into 6G, right? So that's where it is. 5G advanced, 6G, that's what's going to happen.
It's happening.
The problem also is looking at IT as the cost center, right? It needs to change, and it's slowly changing. It's the engine of your profitability. If you do not have your right IT systems in place, it's a charity. You have to throw away, or you have to provide clean services without being able to charge a rate for it. Slowly it's changing. Operators are restructuring. I can give a couple of examples of our customers. For example, EN is a great example. They rebranded themselves from Etisalat to EN, and the reason they're doing that is because they think it's about not just about telecom and connectivity. It's about lifestyle. It's about personalization. It's about moving to a tech co. And how do you do that? By restructuring your own business. But underlying that, to do that transformation, what they first did was they're running an IT transformation or a BSS transformation.
That's got to be a lot easier if I'm greenfield, right? If I am Rakuten, and I can say, if I were to start this from scratch, how am I building my data infrastructure? If I'm Boost, if I'm doing something new, it's got to be a lot harder if I'm
legacy system.
If I'm a legacy player.
So from Rakuten mobile perspective, right? I totally agree with Ari in the sense that monetization strategy has to be figured out first, and for us, that was not like an option too. Like, we were the 4th operator in Japan, starting with Open RAN, so monetization was at the forefront. And yeah, you are right, Peter, in that we were greenfield, so we had the leverage of blurring the boundaries between OSS, BSS, have a common customer DNA that we call it, like a data lake, in order to figure out some of the monetization use cases. But even for the brownfields, that we are talking with and helping them with, I think it's essential to have the business outcomes and backlog figured out first, and then define the phases or the low-hanging fruits, and then go towards that journey. Because if not now, you will have to do that later, maybe during 6G, but it has to be done at some point. So you better start now and have that data strategy figured out.
So what hasn't been said?
I would just say, we deal with a lot of brownfield operators that have 27 billing systems, 12 charging platforms. As services were rolled out over the decades, they just glued another one on. We see a very strong trend, I think, driven by this need to have coherent data, to drive AI, to drive data security even, where there is a sense of they need a unified monetization layer across the whole platform. And there are certain aspects of the OSS that don't have to be the same for all those different business segments of the CRM, things like that. But monetization, because of the just absolute key importance of the data that is flowing out of that, that section, I think we're seeing a strong trend toward unification.
Yeah.
So I think maybe taking this in a different direction. So that's kind of a big picture. We know the industry issue around making money. Maybe then taking it in a different direction. You set up a bad example. Let's switch things around. But I'll take your example of maybe. Can we all think of like one technology or something? I know technology has been a problem here, but one sort of theme that you saw as particularly important here, and you saw sort of a standout. So, for example, Ari, I think for you guys, satellite. Right.
It's one of the many, yes.
Well, I'm giving you all one.
Okay.
You can't pick more. So that as an example, and so maybe we'll start with you. So I'm giving you satellite. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Someone
That's
else
fine.
Okay.
I think satellite and Gen AI, we can pick any one, but let's pick satellite.
So how did you see that go? Maybe we can just pick a few things. I'm guessing slicing, verticals might be different ones, but let's start with satellite. Big trend here. Having conversations with providers, is that fitting into what you guys do?
So not only conversation with operators, but our satellite providers, NTN providers, we actually have a bunch of satellite providers who are looking for IT systems for our customers, whether they're GEO or a MEO or the LEO constellation, such as Telesat, Viasat, and others. They're looking for IT solutions which mirrors telecom. Because for them, OSS is very complicated. Because now we are not modeling physical devices, EMS or NMS, we're trying to figure out the trajectory of the LEO satellites. How do you manage that?
Yeah.
And if you're managing that, how do you managing the relationship with your end customers, if it's direct to device, for example, or if it's a wholesale and you're working with other operators to provide them connectivity services. So that is a complicated area which becomes... Then
anyone else have satellite conversations?
We were doing satellite conversations a decade ago with Inmarsat.
How have they changed?
And we were doing B2B2X and all the principles of 5G and slices we were doing with spots and spot beams and stuff like that. Look, I absolutely believe satellite plays a role alongside other technologies. There won't be a single technology that's going to dominate here. You're going to need fiber, and you're going to need satellite, and you're going to need mobile, and you're going to need a combination of them to solve problems. I think it's interesting when we talked about why everyone went to 5G, that we automatically assumed it was just for revenue. The reality is we went to 5G because we needed capacity. We went to 5G because, some of the new technologies like augmented reality and things like that just were very data hungry and required that capacity. And so there is a view of efficiency and capacity that comes with this. The problem is when you solve one problem, you create others. And what happened with all the new technologies is it created an even more distributed architecture, 5G. Distributed architecture, slices and edge locations. Fiber is a very complex space has always been as a fixed thing. Data centers are no longer straightforward, they're multi-tenanted. and so I think that when you asked, what is the thing, we got to remember telecom operators and the BSS and OSS is about how do I bring all this and do it effectively and efficiently and serve it up. And honestly, my personal view isn't one particular technology or another, it's that ability to orchestrate, right? And I will not use the word integrate. If you're still using the word integrate, you are last decade, right? It is about orchestrating and dynamically ingesting, from third parties and ecosystems and multi-party models, and being able to serve it up, right, with zero touch. So I feel like the more we keep focusing on a use case or a technology, the more we miss the opportunity to truly evolve as a business.
So it's fair. I guess it also depends on who you're talking to, because if you're talking to an operator who's trying to figure out how to integrate a satellite solution and you're talking a bigger picture, they should show you the door. Because if you have a problem around satellite and you're talking bigger picture, then you shouldn't be at the table talking to them. So I think it all depends upon who you're talking to.
And what they're asking.
What you're saying is really good, but it's also really stupid in a case where that's not what they want to talk about, right? So it depends upon who the conversation is with, right?
So I will go back and say this. Almost all operators are seeing a decline in revenue, and almost every operator has seen about 20 to 30% of EBITDA and margin shaved off over the last 4 years. And so at the end of the day, when we talk about value, it's not just about making money, it's about doing it profitably, right? And so the assessment on what you do and how you do it needs to be with big picture in mind.
No, 100%. So that said, you mentioned a couple different sort of, I don't want to say technologies, but things that operators are looking at here. You mentioned slicing.
Yeah.
Anyone have any good slicing conversations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here?
We're having actually lots of
because it seems like slicing is something that we've been talking about for a while.
Absolutely.
And I know we should be talking about bigger picture integration and partnerships, but let's go narrow.
I think it's more than just slicing, though. I mean, I think one of the challenges the industry had is they came out with 5G, but it wasn't really 5G, right? It was 5G RAN, 4G core. Yeah. Now we're seeing 5GSA really take hold, and we have quite a few customers deployed. And now all of a sudden you have many more pieces of the network ecosystem connected back into the monetization area. And so you have the ability to differentiate. If you look at the retail world, you've got Prada, you've got Walmart. I mean, you have everything in between. And I think especially in the B2B space, where businesses will pay for differentiated services. And slicing is a technology. Back to the earlier
What it
discussion,
enables.
the whole key is to come up with differentiated services, and for that you need kind of the next generation, very dynamic, very flexible, very configurable BSS.
Now we all feel bad because we don't want to talk about technology. You made us feel bad talking about technology.
But it's good.
But I mean,
Slicing is very important.
so your point, spot on. That I think anytime you look at the media who talks about 5G has been a failure, right? I think they missed that fundamental point that you made of we needed it to support all the cat videos. We needed it to support the I mean, at a very basic level, we could not have kept up with traffic demands without it. I think that point totally gets missed. But then your other point, operators are not doing so well. They need to figure out how to make money off this. And
But remember the point I made about 4G, right? And the point I made about not paying attention to the big picture. And what happened was you had companies over the top come in over the top and provide social, mobile, analytic, cloud, all built on the back of 4G. And we're sitting here focused on 5G or a technology or a satellite. My point is, if we keep having these conversations as telecom operators and vendors, the next platform companies are going to come in over the top and do that orchestration and serve it up. So it is time to lift the head up and look across.
Yeah.
Peter, I think that conversation, I do agree with you. I mean, that conversation is, I think, happening as we speak today. The operators are looking at it beyond just the technology play, but looking at it from a business model standpoint. And when it comes, and Dave, you had a good point, slicing, for example, right? Yeah. Slicing is a great example for B2B differentiation, for example. Absolutely. A lot of these operators, now there's investment going across the sea, across the countries, right? Let's think about EN investing in Vodafone, you have Telefonica investing, you have Airtel investing in BT. All these things are happening. And the bigger story is how do you create a much bigger entity, but also different type of business model? All these are breaking it up into infra, you have Netco, Surfco, whether you have a satellite or not, that's a whole different story. You are talking about an AI factory, for example. Yeah. Many of these guys are also multi-vertical, right? Not just about the connectivity services anymore. It's my anchor.
And to be fair, for the record,
go beyond.
I don't talk AI factories because I have no idea what it is. I think
nobody really knows, but everybody's talking.
I think it's a neat marketing term. But maybe let's go back when you talked about things that we said. Slicing, we kind of know how that fits in, but you mentioned edge, right? And I think edge is particularly interesting because edge touches a bit of the orchestration side of things. How do we orchestrate it from a network standpoint? There is a monetization story if we do it well. It kind of fits into the data story. Are we hearing edge much here from this show? I mean, yeah,
definitely edge computing is part of the technologies, let's say, that enable stuff as well. Just wanted to touch base on the 5G slicing and the overall monetization. Sorry, getting back there, but it's the broader mobile ecosystem, really. This what you start realizing that the monetization opportunity is in the broader mobile ecosystem. So how can we bring the enterprise aspect of it to be more aware of the opportunity, looking at operators as one ecosystem as such? We look at GSMA and TM Forum to bring those together in a more standard fashion, because we've been trying in different Catalyst group. We've worked with Netcracker and Rakuten in use cases Catalyst to bring that ecosystem together. In our recent partnership as well with CSG, we've tried to bring the OSS and BSS world together to start, when we talk about the 5G slice or any monetization opportunity, then it's how to not only activate that slide, but empower the end user to start assuring and have self-control of that, so they can feel that they're attended all the time. From that perspective, that's the core of our partnership in a way, like unifying the data.
Are you going to tell your partner he's wrong?
No, yeah. I'm not. But
you seem like you're ready to. You seem like you're ready to.
It's an analysis.
You seem like I'm just gonna move over.
We said there'd be no Jerry Springer moments.
Basically, we're promoting the partnership here, but we've just announced.
No, but I think it's great. Obviously, although we all do different parts, we should be working together, which is good. I guess
that's what you see in this industry. People are coming together more, not only breaking the silos, but it's
and for what it's worth,
partnership.
I will say, in terms of big picture themes from the show that probably won't get a lot of press. You can imagine sort of heading up the research and consulting business we start thinking about our show wrap up, the show themes even before we get here, right? I think the one theme that I probably won't see from a lot of other folks, partnerships seem to be a big focus this year, right? First words out of the mouth of like Nokia was, hey, look at our booth, and Ericsson. Dave, you were about to, I think you had.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, back to operators looking for new sources of revenue. One of the trends we're seeing that I don't see anywhere in the press is leveraging the wholesale capabilities. And satellite is largely, a lot of them are wholesale business models as well. And typically, operators have built out capacity. They have overcapacity in different areas at different times of the day. I mean, we talk to operators that have massive overcapacity in certain areas of their 5G network. And what they're starting to realize is, they're burning the electricity, they're getting zero revenue, so there's essentially pure margin if they can figure out how to sell that off as wholesale. And but the problem is the wholesale BSS systems have typically been end of cycle, completely batch, no visibility. And so what we see is operators moving to a more real-time wholesale platform running right behind the retail platform, and therefore they can offer dynamic pricing, dynamic services, time-based pricing, sudden, spot-based pricing, and real-time visibility to the wholesale customer, and really turn that into a revenue source rather than an afterthought.
Yeah, I'll say wholesale probably doesn't get a ton of attention. Maybe then let's just come back. Let's take your lead. Topics that we haven't seen, because we've only got 4 minutes, but we can come back in this direction. Topics that we don't necessarily see getting a lot of press, a lot of media, but we had good conversations on, or we thought were important. Anshul, anything you see sort of needs more attention and fit your conversations?
Yeah, I mean, one of the topic is also like, connectivity. We believe that it's a human right? So satellites and edge computing and all these things. Another key pillar is also sustainability. And in that, we are hearing a lot of enterprises, going towards the sustainability goals. And in that aspect, what we did is we launched something called Green Slice. So it's network slicing, but also energy efficient one. And there are Camara APIs and network APIs which are supporting these kind of, initiatives. So I think we didn't see a lot of, availability around green slicing or sustainable slicing, which we are now, trying to get implemented in Japan and elsewhere. And we are hearing from some of the enterprises, which we see picking up.
Nice connection to sustainability. All right, what's not getting enough attention, Ari, that you guys at least focused on this week?
I think the operations automation part of it. I know it's not a business model, but we are talking technology. I think it's very critical. When we talk about, whether we're talking about edge cloud, whether we're talking about satellite, any of that, end of the day, you need to be able to manage that very, very efficiently on demand. And how do you do that is through your, AI automation or your OSS systems. And how do you make that happen? One point I have, and going back to Dave's point around the wholesale, innovation in wholesale is happening in a bigger way. T-Mobile US is right here, and they use Netcracker, customer of ours, from 200,000 devices to 30 million subscribers on their wholesale platform after the Sprint acquisition. And what they're now doing, which was a consumer brand, that's what T-Mobile US was, Magenta Consumer, has now become a massive enterprise IoT MVNO enabler after their Sprint acquisition. And that's all part of the wholesale business. You need on-demand, you need partner onboarding. They're using agentic AI, for example, to enable their customers. So it's not a sexy topic, but it's a very, very important topic as well.
And I think to your point, automation. I think automation fits in the same thing where, no, we all want to talk about AI and agentic AI, and automation feels like it's no one wants to talk automation anymore because it's not sexy like AI as well. And obviously, even those roles.
It's coming back, however, the automation with the autonomous network, right?
100%.
The TM-form, right? That's going to get a lot of attention, I think, in the next years for sure.
Definitely. It's just, of course, in a show where you're focused on everything AI. And
exactly, AI.
What else did you think didn't get?
I mean, maybe you've been hearing in other industry how quantum computing in general technology can leverage that.
Nice.
So how telecom can leverage a technology, a powerful technology like quantum computing. Maybe it's more on the IT and the powerful side, but I think that will find its way, I think, back in the telecom industry. And maybe obviously 6G is coming on and stuff, AI-centric network, that's going to become always a topic in the upcoming years. The industry changed a lot, and I think we need to accommodate all the new technology enablers that we see in the broader mobile ecosystem, not only the telco.
Particularly given the brand importance and the trusted brand of a lot of operators, security being so critical.
Absolutely, yeah. Exactly.
We heard a lot of what wasn't addressed, so there's bound to be something left. What do you think sort of didn't get enough attention here, but was part of your conversations?
Look, to be honest, if there's any press sitting around in this room, what I would honestly say is Dave and Ari really honestly touched on the key thing here. When we talk about driving new revenue and we continually look for it in the same place, actually the new revenues are more likely to come from, and I'm going to say wholesale, but most people are automatically going to think interconnect, between carriers, and they're going to think backhaul and roaming. Actually, we call it reinvented wholesale, because a reinvented wholesale is one that takes into account the ServCo, NetCo delayering and separations that are going on, and a huge number of infrastructure providers who are now technically wholesalers sitting there waiting to be orchestrated. And I know I keep using the word orchestration, but at the end of the day, and you talked about automation now is more about catalog-driven models and processes, and it's about that. And when we say catalog-driven, it's not an enterprise product catalog. It is a catalog that works with other catalogs, that holds rules and specifications to dynamically drive that orchestration, that automation. But more importantly, to do that all-important handshake with those intent-based networks to give you that CFS, RFS, so that you can leverage that huge investment in 5G, that huge investment in fiber. And so I know I keep moving us away from technology, but that's the conversation that we need to be having, and that's not the conversation we had here. The best thing I heard from this entire event is when BT said, slow is the new down. Because in one key statement, they summarized the problem and the thing they need to fix at all levels, at a network level, at a business level, at a technology level.
Well, I think we are now out of time, and I'm going to guess this is probably the first session where any of you might have heard a discussion of wholesale and how we need to attach that to monetization and data structures and how that all fits together and orchestrates, not integrates, but orchestrates into a solution, which I think ultimately really should have been the goal here. Bring up some new topics people hadn't heard about. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists?
Yeah.
Thank you all very, very much, and enjoy the rest. There's still several hours. Make the most of it while it lasts. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.